Okay, so let's create a method that returns the user that corresponds to a provided token. So at the bottom of users.go, right? So we're currently in our data directory, and so I'm gonna have func, of course, on user model, and this will be called get for token. Get the user for the specified token. And so what we need to provide is the token, of course. So the token scope. Okay. We need to provide the actual token. And these will both be strings. Okay. Okay. And we will return the user, or a pointer to the user, and of course an error. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to hash the plain text token that the user has provided, because remember, we have stored the hash version in our database. So we're comparing the hash versions. So token hash will simply be SHA-256, and of course we will simply say sum 256, and we'll convert that to a byte string here, which will be token plain text. Okay, so this will return an array, right, which hash. This will store the hash of the token plain text in this array called token hash. Later on, we'll convert this array to a slice, because remember, we're using slices. Okay, so let's set up our query as usual. And so our query will simply do a join. Alright, so we're going to simply say select users that ID, users that created at, right, users that name, so returning everything about the user, users that email, users that password, underscore hash, users that activated, and finally users that version. Okay, from users, and then we're going to simply join. So inner join again. You should have seen joins already. We're just simply linking the two tables based on the primary and foreign keys. So the primary key for the users table is users.id, and so we want to join on tokens that user ID. Right, so our two tables are linked, and so now we can ask the question where tokens that hash is $1 and tokens dot scope is $2, and finally the tokens dot expiry is greater than $3. So this is our query, right? Give me everything. Let me just make sure I have everything correct. Right. ID, created at, name, email, okay, password dot hash. Alright, so email password underscore hash. Alright, so email password underscore hash. Alright, I seem to have all the names correct, but if I don't, I'll get an error and you'll fix it. So let's package these together. So we'll simply say args is a slice, and I'll use interface, and it will contain token hash, which I will make a slice, right? We've seen this before. We'll pass in token scope. Okay, that's the second, and we will now pass in time.now. Okay, so alright, so where the token has this hash, where the scope, so token.scope, okay, has the scope, which we know will be activation, and where the time, where it's greater than time.now. Alright, so this simply means that the token is still valid. Alright, so if the token is not greater than the time that we're currently checking, then it has expired. Okay, so we have everything we need. Let's just create a new user that will contain the user that is returned from our query, assuming there is a user return. There was a match. Alright, let's build our query. So I'm going to create a context, of course. With timeout, and we're going again for 3 seconds. And then of course we will defer calling cancel. Alright, that's it. Let's go ahead and run our query. Okay, m.db.query row context. Alright, and of course we need to provide the context, we need to provide the query, and we need to provide the arguments. And of course whatever is returned, we will simply store that in the user that we just created. So user dot ID, ID, user dot created at user dot name, user dot email, user dot password dot hash, and we have here user that's activated, and finally user dot version. Okay, so if a user is returned, we're going to store them in here. Now if we have a problem, then obviously we need to check for that. So if error not nil, then we had some problem. Maybe no row was returned, meaning there was no user associated with the token. So let's check for that. So case errors that is, and we'll say error SQL dot error no rows. Okay, so PostgreSQL would have told us no rows. Okay, and so oh, okay. Okay, so if there are no rows, then I will simply return nil since there is no user, and I'll return error record not found. Of course, if there's some other error, I'll just use that as the default, and then I will simply return no user followed by whatever error it is. Alright, then we are done. Okay, now if there are no errors, it means that a user was returned. Then we'll simply return a pointer to that user and nil for errors. Okay, and that takes care of that. This is our get for token method. So whenever we provide this method with a description of a token, the scope, category, and we provide the actual token, this method will simply return a pointer to a user who this token belongs to. That's it. And then of course, if you recall, if we go back here into users, you'll recall that when we call it and it gets back a user, if it's an error, of course, we will send back an invalid response. But if it is a user, then we will change the user activated to true. And once we've done that, we will delete the token since we no longer need it. And finally, we'll send a response back to the user telling them that this is your new updated record, which should show activated being true. Alright, I'll leave this here, and so in the next lesson we'll do the other stuff, which is actually creating our route, the endpoint, and then doing some testing. I'll see you in that video.